Sources close to Trump's inner circle have reportedly leaked information about a covert plan to overthrow the Supreme Court's influence. Allegations suggest Trump has been devising a strategy to remove or sideline certain justices, aiming to reshape the judiciary to serve his agenda. Speculation surrounds secret meetings and potential moves to pressure or unseat justices who oppose his vision. Critics are calling it a direct attack on America's judicial independence, warning of dire consequences for the balance of power in the government. Could this be the boldest political play in modern U.S. history? Or is there more to this story? With public outcry mounting, both Trump supporters and opponents are on high alert as details continue to emerge. Stay tuned for ongoing coverage of this explosive story and the potential fallout from this unprecedented move. As news of Trump's alleged plan to restructure or reduce the Supreme Court's power circulates, political analysts speculate on the potential implications. Some experts suggest that such a move could destabilize the balance of power between the executive and judicial branches, setting a precedent that could fundamentally alter the U.S. government. For many Americans, this controversy has become a rallying point, inspiring intense debate about the scope and limits of presidential power. The rumor alone has caused a frenzy among supporters and opponents alike, sparking protests outside government buildings in major cities. People on both sides of the issue have taken to the streets, with one side calling for greater judicial accountability and the other defending the independence of the courts. The protests are a testament to the high stakes surrounding this potential action, highlighting the passion with which Americans view their system of checks and balances. In the days following the report, social media is flooded with discussions, memes, and theories about Trump's motives. Some users speculate that Trump sees the Supreme Court as a barrier to enacting his broader agenda, especially on issues related to executive power and controversial policies. Hashtags like #SaveOurCourts and #JudicialIndependence trend nationwide as users share their views on the allegations. Political commentators analyze the implications of such a move, debating whether this alleged plot would even be legal. Many warn that targeting the Supreme Court could have dangerous consequences for democracy, potentially leading to a constitutional crisis. They argue that a president acting against the judiciary is unprecedented in modern American history, highlighting the profound impact this story could have on the public's trust in government. Legal scholars are quick to weigh in, some suggesting that removing or pressuring justices could constitute a violation of the separation of powers. They point to historical examples of presidents challenging the judiciary but note that direct action to unseat or influence justices would be a major departure from established norms. For these scholars, this controversy could become a landmark moment in American constitutional history. Cable news networks dedicate extensive airtime to the controversy, hosting debates and bringing in legal experts to discuss possible outcomes. Pundits on both sides of the political spectrum argue their perspectives, with some claiming this alleged plan is a calculated political move. Others suggest it's merely a distraction or tactic, intended to keep the public's attention away from other pressing issues. Each network presents its own take, shaping public opinion along partisan lines. In response to public outcry, various senators call for a full investigation into the allegations. Lawmakers from both parties demand transparency, insisting that any attempt to undermine the Supreme Court's role in government should be immediately addressed. Congressional leaders issue statements condemning any plan to interfere with judicial independence, promising to uphold the constitutional checks and balances. Meanwhile, Trump supporters argue that the Supreme Court's power has grown unchecked for years, claiming that reform is necessary to prevent judicial overreach. They contend that the judiciary has overstepped its boundaries, interpreting laws in ways that align with political ideologies rather than constitutional principles. For these supporters, Trump's alleged plan represents a way to restore what they see as balance in government. Counter-protests emerge, with demonstrators calling for a defense of the Supreme Court's independence. Advocacy groups gather outside courthouses and government buildings, holding signs that emphasize the importance of the judiciary as a check on executive power. Their message is clear: any attempt to interfere with or diminish the Supreme Court's role would be a direct threat to American democracy. As tensions rise, some political strategists suggest that this controversy could become a central issue in upcoming elections. Candidates begin to address the issue in speeches, promising to either defend or reform the judiciary depending on their stance. This debate over judicial power reshapes the political landscape, with voters now prioritizing issues of governance and constitutional integrity. Educational institutions respond to the public's interest by holding forums and discussions on the separation of powers and judicial independence. Professors lead discussions on the historical role of the judiciary, examining how previous presidents have interacted with the courts. These events attract students and community members alike, offering a space for informed debate on the issue's complex legal and ethical dimensions. In response to mounting pressure, Trump's team releases a statement denying any intention to overthrow the Supreme Court. They frame the rumors as misinformation intended to tarnish Trump's image, insisting that any reforms discussed were aimed at ensuring judicial accountability. However, the statement does little to calm the storm, as critics argue that this is simply a calculated attempt to avoid scrutiny. Political activists on both sides mobilize, urging Americans to contact their representatives and demand action. For those who fear the potential consequences of a diminished Supreme Court, the controversy is a rallying cry to protect democracy. Meanwhile, reform advocates call for a recalibration of judicial power, arguing that the courts have overreached on key issues and need to be held accountable. Public opinion polls reveal that Americans are deeply divided on the issue. Some view the alleged plan as a necessary reform, while others see it as a dangerous abuse of power. This split reflects the larger polarization in the country, with each side increasingly entrenched in its views. Analysts suggest that this division could lead to further political gridlock, complicating efforts to address pressing national issues. Across social media, misinformation spreads rapidly, with false claims about Supreme Court justices' removal procedures and the scope of executive power. Fact-checking organizations attempt to clarify the legal boundaries around the issue, but the sheer volume of posts and videos makes it challenging to combat false narratives. The widespread rumors contribute to a growing sense of distrust in both the media and government. Internationally, leaders and political analysts are closely watching the unfolding events. Some foreign commentators express concern about the potential for a constitutional crisis, noting that an attempt to restructure the judiciary could weaken American democracy. Others argue that the controversy demonstrates the resilience of American institutions, as citizens actively defend their government's checks and balances. Legal experts examine hypothetical scenarios, exploring the potential fallout if Trump were to push for changes in the judiciary. They discuss possible outcomes, from a constitutional amendment to challenges in the Supreme Court itself. Each scenario underscores the complexity of the issue, highlighting the unprecedented nature of a president directly targeting the judiciary. Voter advocacy groups intensify efforts to educate the public on the role of the judiciary and the importance of judicial independence. They release informational campaigns, distribute pamphlets, and organize community meetings to inform citizens about their rights and the separation of powers. For these groups, the controversy is an opportunity to engage the public in civic education, ensuring that voters understand the stakes. As Election Day nears, political candidates find themselves pressed to clarify their positions on the alleged plot to influence or overthrow the Supreme Court. Some candidates pledge to defend judicial independence, while others argue for reforms that would limit the court's power. This focus on the judiciary shapes the election, with voters increasingly prioritizing candidates who align with their views on government structure. Debate within Congress becomes heated as lawmakers propose resolutions aimed at protecting the judiciary from executive interference. Some bills call for stricter oversight of judicial appointments, while others propose measures to safeguard the court's autonomy. These proposals spark intense debate, revealing a deep divide among legislators on how to address the controversy. Supreme Court justices themselves remain silent on the issue, adhering to the tradition of judicial neutrality. However, court insiders suggest that some justices are concerned about the potential impact of these rumors on public perception. The court's reputation and authority, they argue, rely on public trust in its impartiality, a trust that could be damaged if the court appears to be at odds with the executive branch. The public's reaction to the controversy has inspired a renewed interest in the U.S. Constitution and the system of checks and balances. Bookstores report increased sales of materials on American government, and libraries see a rise in visitors seeking information on constitutional law. This renewed interest reflects a desire among citizens to better understand the foundations of their government. In some states, public forums and town halls are held to address the controversy, with citizens voicing their support or concern for the alleged plan. These discussions provide a space for people to express their views, engage in debate, and learn more about the role of the judiciary in American governance. The forums become focal points for community engagement, fostering an informed electorate. At the same time, conspiracy theories begin to emerge, with some claiming that the controversy is a distraction orchestrated to draw attention away from other political issues. These theories, though largely unsupported, gain traction among certain groups, adding a new layer of complexity to the already intense public discourse. For political commentators, the controversy provides a wealth of material, with many framing the situation as a test of American democracy. Some argue that the nation's commitment to checks and balances will ultimately withstand any challenge, while others warn of lasting damage to public trust. Their commentary serves to contextualize the situation, offering historical and legal perspectives on the current events. As the situation unfolds, advocacy groups continue to lobby for legislation that would strengthen the independence of the judiciary. These efforts reflect a growing consensus among some lawmakers that judicial reform, though controversial, is necessary to ensure government accountability. However, opponents argue that any reform should be approached with caution to preserve the judiciary's critical role. Ultimately, the controversy surrounding the alleged plan to overthrow the Supreme Court becomes a defining issue of the year, raising fundamental questions about American governance. The outcome of this debate could shape the future of the judiciary, influencing not only current events but also the legacy of the American legal system. As citizens continue to debate the issue, one thing remains certain: the nation's commitment to democracy and the rule of law is being put to the test like never before. The alleged plan to limit or reshape the Supreme Court's authority has cast an ominous shadow over Washington, raising questions about the limits of executive influence. As each day brings new speculation and analysis, citizens and lawmakers alike grapple with the implications of a government that could potentially erode the judiciary's independence. For many, this represents an urgent test of America's democratic values, with calls for increased vigilance and oversight from both citizens and political institutions. Across the nation, discussions erupt in classrooms, with educators addressing the controversy head-on, dissecting the balance of power and the historical relationship between the executive and judicial branches. For students, this moment becomes a first-hand lesson in constitutional principles, sparking debates over what the Founding Fathers intended and how the Constitution applies to modern governance. Legal scholars publish op-eds in major newspapers, each presenting unique perspectives on what an alleged move against the Supreme Court might mean for the country. Some argue that even the mere rumor of such a plan threatens to undermine public confidence in the judiciary, as citizens may start to question whether court decisions are truly independent or influenced by political pressures. This erosion of trust, they warn, could have lasting consequences for the rule of law in America. Think tanks produce detailed reports analyzing the possible outcomes if a president were to challenge the judiciary directly. These reports outline scenarios ranging from increased political tensions to legal challenges in the courts themselves, painting a picture of a nation in crisis should any such action move forward. Each report emphasizes the potential instability that could arise if the traditional balance of powers is upset. Meanwhile, editorial boards across the country take strong stances on the issue, urging citizens to stay informed and engaged. Many of these editorials call on lawmakers to recommit to the principles that safeguard democracy, particularly judicial independence. They argue that the nation's stability relies on the public's belief in a fair and impartial judiciary, warning that any perceived threat to this independence could shake the public's faith in the entire political system. In the entertainment industry, filmmakers and screenwriters see the controversy as a new wellspring for creative inspiration. Shows, films, and documentaries centered on political intrigue in the judiciary are greenlit, with writers developing stories that reflect America's anxieties about power, influence, and justice. These narratives captivate audiences, offering fictionalized insights into the complex interplay between government branches. As Election Day approaches, voters grow increasingly attuned to candidates' stances on judicial independence, with the issue becoming a litmus test for many. Some candidates respond by making bold promises to protect the judiciary, positioning themselves as defenders of the Constitution. Others call for reforms that they argue would increase accountability within the court system, reflecting the ongoing division within the electorate. In this charged atmosphere, Supreme Court justices themselves feel the scrutiny of public opinion more intensely than ever. While they traditionally refrain from commenting on political matters, sources suggest that justices are closely following the developments and remain deeply aware of the potential implications for their own positions and the institution as a whole. Public libraries report a surge in visitors checking out books on constitutional law, the judiciary, and landmark Supreme Court cases. This trend reflects a national thirst for knowledge about how government functions, with citizens of all ages eager to understand the complexities of the system they are now questioning. For many, this moment represents a turning point in their relationship with American democracy. Foreign media outlets cover the U.S. controversy with fascination, publishing in-depth pieces that analyze the potential impact on global perceptions of American governance. Some foreign leaders express concern about the situation, noting that the U.S. has historically served as a model of democracy for the world. If the judiciary's independence is compromised, they warn, it could erode international trust in the United States as a reliable partner. Amid this frenzy, civil rights organizations hold webinars and public talks, stressing the importance of safeguarding democratic institutions. These events serve as rallying calls, bringing together concerned citizens who feel a newfound urgency to protect judicial independence. Organizers emphasize that an attack on one branch of government is an attack on the system as a whole, underscoring the interconnectedness of American democracy. The controversy ignites debates about term limits for justices, with reform advocates arguing that lifetime appointments contribute to a lack of accountability within the Supreme Court. Others counter that term limits would weaken judicial independence by making justices more susceptible to political pressures. The debate adds a new layer of complexity to an already charged situation, illustrating the nuanced perspectives within the American electorate. Amidst all the noise, individual voters take to social media to share personal stories about how Supreme Court decisions have impacted their lives. From healthcare to marriage equality, these stories highlight the far-reaching influence of the judiciary, reminding the public of the court's role in shaping American society. For many, these stories reaffirm the importance of maintaining a fair and impartial court system. Clinton campaign organizers announce a nationwide series of events to address voters' concerns, assuring them that any moves on judicial reform would prioritize public interests. These events are aimed at calming fears, but some remain skeptical, perceiving the move as an attempt to sideline a conversation about court independence and refocus attention on broader campaign promises. In schools, teachers face tough questions from students about the nature of government power and the role of each branch in protecting rights. Some students express fears over a future where the judiciary might lose its power to check the executive, reflecting the growing anxiety that even young people feel over the controversy. For teachers, this represents a challenging but vital opportunity to teach civics in real time. As Election Day draws near, voter turnout is projected to reach record levels, with many citizens determined to make their voices heard on the issue of judicial independence. Election organizers prepare for an influx of participants, noting that the nation's renewed interest in the judiciary has driven more people to vote. For many, this election is seen as a defining moment for democracy in America. Historians weigh in on the controversy, drawing parallels to previous political clashes involving the judiciary. They discuss the lessons that can be learned from past conflicts between the branches of government, warning that ignoring these lessons could lead to unintended consequences. Their commentary provides a sobering reminder of the long-term impact of political decisions on democratic institutions. Proposals for judicial reform flood the halls of Congress, with lawmakers from both sides of the aisle introducing bills aimed at addressing public concerns. Some proposals call for transparency in judicial appointments, while others suggest changes to the process of judicial review. The sheer volume of proposals reflects the heightened sense of urgency, as legislators respond to their constituents' demands for action. In this climate, pro-judiciary organizations see an unprecedented surge in donations and membership as citizens rally to support the preservation of judicial independence. These groups channel their resources into advocacy efforts, media campaigns, and educational programs to ensure that their message reaches as many Americans as possible. The controversy reaches a boiling point as the Supreme Court convenes to hear a high-profile case that touches on executive power. Analysts and citizens alike watch closely, interpreting each justice's questioning as a signal of their stance on the current political climate. The court's ruling will likely have profound implications, not only for the case at hand but for the perception of the judiciary as an independent institution. As Election Day arrives, citizens across the nation head to the polls, many with the Supreme Court's independence weighing heavily on their minds. For countless Americans, this election represents an opportunity to take a stand on the direction of the country, reaffirming the importance of checks and balances in the face of unprecedented controversy. Election results reveal a deeply divided nation, with some candidates who champion judicial reform winning by narrow margins, while others who defended the court's independence faced fierce opposition. The mixed results underscore the complexity of public opinion, reflecting an electorate that remains deeply torn on the issue. In the wake of the election, commentators speculate on what lies ahead for the Supreme Court and the future of judicial independence in America. Some warn that the controversy has permanently altered the relationship between the judiciary and other branches, while others express hope that public awareness will lead to positive reforms.